carrying on. I should have the slides somewhere. Here, there we are. All right, so that's Kevin Mitnick, the expert of this stuff. And what we're going to have here, what the Hacking Club is setting up, there was a social engineering contest. Has been at DEF CON for the last couple of years, and more of that coming up. This is how Anonymous hacked HB Gary Federal. They took over their email server with SQL injection, and then they sent an email that appeared to come from the CEO saying, I'm somewhere else, could you change the administrator password, turn on a remote connection, and open the port in the firewall? Hey, it's working now, thanks a lot. So that's how they got in. They said, hey, would you please hand me the password? Thanks. That's why, this is a devastating attack. There's a new one going around, which has stolen, I think, $40 million from somebody in Europe, where you just send an email to somebody in purchasing, you say, oh, we're buying another company, send $40 million to this wire address right now, and they just do it. And then they say, well, boss, you told me to. I said, wait a minute, what? So these companies don't apparently have internal systems that if anyone's transferring a large amount of money, make sure you ask somebody face-to-face before you do it. I guess they're going to be putting those in now. So anyway, there's general techniques. You persuade people into doing these things. You somehow scare them into thinking they're going to get fired if they don't, or you find out some dirt on them and you threaten to expose the dirt, this sort of thing. And the point is, it's very difficult because humans are social animals. They care about social status. They want to please people. They are afraid of falling in status by doing the bad thing. And you probably don't really want to take all those features out of them and have a bunch of psychopaths working for you, even if you could. So it's a problem. And the social engineers are just people that are good at this, spotting the body language, figuring out what lies people will believe, figuring out what people are insecure and nervous about, and how to subtly threaten that part of them. So they'll be thinking about, oh, I don't want this person to notice I'm fat, so I'll give my password to change the topic, this kind of thing. So there's tricks. You convince them there's an emergency. You give them something, you foul up their machine, and then you offer to fix it for free, fast if they don't, if they give you something. Convince them that everyone else is already doing this and it's normal behavior, or that it make them think they have to do it to be nice to you. And if you want to prevent this, you have to train your staff to be sort of nasty and suspicious. If anybody calls and tells you something, make sure you verify it first. Make sure they somehow have a real customer account with us or are in our system already before you tell them anything. Yeah?
What's quid pro quo?
Quid pro quo is where you get something for something. So you give them something. So convince them that you're doing them a favor of some kind, and now they're giving you a favor back. Yeah, it means this for that. Anyway, so there's a social engineering template here. I thought this is funny because I worked in restitution for a major evangelical Christian TV show, which I didn't know at the time. I worked for my fraud restitution company, database management, and they had this database of all these people, and the database was all this information, all these lies. We told these guys that we're building animal hospitals. They have a bunch of dogs. Call them back in 6 months and tell them we're building another branch of the animal hospital in Tennessee and ask if their dog is doing okay, and here's the name of their kid. And these other people tell them we're doing veterans hospitals. They would just promise them anything. And they would keep track of what lies they told them, when to call them back, what lies to tell them next time, and suck in the money. And it was my job to go through all that and figure out how much money they stole from each person, which was a pretty interesting database problem. But it wasn't until years later I found out which Christian ministry it was. But anyway, one of the many Christian ministries that was nuked by the FTC for fraud, for doing this kind of stuff. Anyway, DEF CON had a social engineering contest where you have, it's a game, but you have a list of things you have to call. The first year it was you have to call this company, you have to get somebody on the phone, and you have to get them to tell you what browser they're using, what kind of antivirus they use, and then get them to go to URL you give them, because that would be enough to take over. And it's not in fact a malicious URL, but we want to see how many people you can follow. In the first year they did it, like I say, they succeeded in 130 companies out of 135, and the only 5 times they failed are when the people that answered the phone were women. And I hope I don't tread on political correctness here, but this is not news to me. I don't know if the world has changed, but when I was a young man, the way things worked is the women would go out on dates with the men, and they would just smile and nod, and the men would brag and tell them everything, and women would just sit there pretending to believe it when they could see what garbage it was. They're just used to being lied to a lot more than men, I think. And they're more willing to believe that when someone's talking to me, they're probably lying to me and trying to manipulate me, which makes them a lot better here. And this is another reason why we need a lot of women in this field, because men have systematic weaknesses. And for example, the Russian spies, like Anna Chapman, come here, seduce the generals, and get all the secrets and leave. And this is going to keep happening until we just don't have nobody in the business but straight men. that all have a systematic weakness. We need a mixture of people that don't all have the same flaw if we're going to be secure. Anyway, there's shoulder surfing. You can look and watch what people are typing on the keyboard. The king of that was Keith. He used to be here. He'd sneak up and record me typing in my password with his phone and put the videos on the web. That was pretty good. He got on the Hall of Fame for that. People put little cameras at the ATM machine to get your PIN. They use binoculars and telescopes and such. You can also, if the microphone is on in a chat room, someone at Berkeley found out that you can hear the sound of the fingers tapping and figure out things about the passes, like the same letter twice is different than right, left, and different than pinky. So you can get some information about the password just from the sound. So if you want to prevent this stuff, it's really quite difficult. You pretty much have to be in like a windowless basement with metal all around you, so nobody can stand behind you. And that's why, these top secret places tend to be sort of dreary little closets, because if people are around, they can see this stuff. And it used to be this thing called dumpster diving, where you go through people's trash. This is pretty much over. Now you just go to Facebook and find out everything about everybody. It's like people say, hey, Facebook is like the NSA's greatest spy tool ever, because everybody just voluntarily push out all their personal information on there. And this, of course, means that everybody can get your email. That's how Sherry Palin got hacked, because you can go on Facebook and find out the answers to your reset questions, like what town were you born in, what's your mother's maiden name. So anybody that tries can pretty easily get in anybody's public account. Anyway, so you can educate your users. You should be shredding trash. CVS was fined $2 million for dumping medical records without shredding them first in an unlocked dumpster. Now, that is certainly an issue. Paper records in the trash are a bad thing. And then you can follow people in just restricted areas by just following them through. The first person goes through, and you can just sort of rush in before the door shuts, or tell them, make a fake-looking, a good-looking but fake ID card and say, oh, the card must have got demagnetized, let me just follow you. And people will do it unless you have this suspicious, nasty culture where everyone has been trained to not fall for things like this, which is tending to happen. Every year that DEF CON contest is less successful. People have to try harder. By the way, they're talking about doing that here, trying to set up a system at the phone network so we can do it. You can't record it, apparently, because that would be wiretapping, but we can have it live. And at DEF CON, it's fun. They have a booth. You can hear both sides of the conversation. This poor guy's there trying to talk someone into doing something stupid. And all the ones I've been to, they failed. Like I remember this guy called up, and they got this sort of sharp-sounding woman at the other end. And he said, I'm calling from your outsourced tech support, and they've told me that we need to bring down the server, so I need your login information. And someone says, really? Oh, the outsourced tech support, really? So what's the name of that company? She says, I'm the in-house tech support, and we don't have any outsourced tech support. And he's like, I gotta go, bye. But that's the difference between the amateur and the master. Like Kevin would have had some answer at this point that would win. You gotta. But this person was out of tricks and gave up. Anyway, you have turnstiles are intended to make sure only one person can go through at a time. Anybody that rides BART can see how well that works. But anyway, you have these cards to limit people. Phishing, I mentioned, is sending emails. We're trying to trick people into doing something that will be like biting on a hook. You get something right away. Like they're going to click on a link, it'll put malware on their machine, and now I can do bad things like steal their passwords. Yeah.
On the previous slide, it said
Yeah.
even for people I'm wondering why.
It's what you teach people, that because for all you know, the person just got fired, and they're sneaking back in to do a bad thing, or they got transferred to the other department. And besides, they want people to all put in their cards so they have a record of who came in and who went out. So in general, you tell people you must use your card. And if for some reason you don't have a card, you have to go to the security office and tell them what's going on. Don't just be sneaking in here without going through proper. That's what I think they're thinking of there. All right. So I got the last batch of iClickers here. And let me see. Oh, good. That's not too bad. Oops. All right. I can do it this way. There we are. All right. Let me get this thing out of the way. All right. What technique marks your computer with text from a web server? All right, I'll quit at 30. All right, that's cookies. Good, a popular answer. All right, which one will find all the computers on a network? All right, and that's the zone transfer. Good, a popular answer. All right. Which one puts a tiny image to spy on you? I'll quit at 25. Looks like the answers are pretty much in. All right, and that's the web bug. Good. All right. So 2 out of 3 San Francisco residents traded their password for a cup of coffee. What technique is that? The Register wrote an article about this. They just set up a booth, a cup of coffee for your password, downtown San Francisco.
What was your password to?
Okay.
No, they didn't. And I bet, one thing I wondered is you could probably give them a fake password. But anyway, I would bet a lot of them weren't. Anyway, so that is quid pro quo. This for that. Yeah, all right. You give them something, presumably some value. And while some of us in the profession would like to imagine that your password is more than a cup of coffee, the lesson, which I think many charities have shown, is that to the average lower-level employee in your company, it is not worth more to them than a cup of coffee. Their concept of security and ours is quite different. Anyway, all right. What technique defeats physical security? Looks like I quit at 25. All right, and that's piggybacking. Okay. Now, I'm going to try and figure out who got the most right, but it's going to be a little bit clumsy today because my new software, although it looks pretty, it doesn't let me sort things. So I think I have to export it